The cool breeze of an early spring morning swept over the rural expanse of Willow Creek Ranch, carrying the scent of freshly turned earth and blooming wildflowers. The day promised tranquility, but for 24-year-old rancher Clara Hayes, it began with confusion. As the rising sun cast a golden hue over the barn, she spotted Bluebell, her mare, standing squarely in front of the barn door, refusing to budge. Bluebell, a sturdy dapple gray horse with a mane as silver as the morning dew, was not known for stubborn behavior. Clara paused mid-step, her boots crunching against the gravel driveway. "What's the matter, girl?" she called, setting down the bucket of feed she had been carrying. Bluebell didn't respond with her usual nicker or friendly stomp. Instead, she held her ground, blocking the barn entrance with a fierce determination that Clara had never seen before. Her large, expressive eyes darted between Clara and the barn door, her ears twitching nervously. Clara frowned. Something wasn't right. Bluebell wasn't just idling, she was standing guard. Clara approached slowly, her hands outstretched to soothe the horse. "Easy, Bluebell. Let me see what's got you so worked up." As she drew closer, Bluebell stamped her hoof and snorted, stepping to the side just enough to reveal the barn door. Clara hesitated, her pulse quickening. Taking a deep breath, she reached for the handle and pushed the door open. The barn's familiar scent of hay and wood greeted her, but it was accompanied by something unexpected, a faint whimpering. Clara froze, her ears straining to catch the sound again. There it was, soft but unmistakable, the cry of a small animal. "Hello," Clara called, her voice low and soothing. She stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the slats in the wooden walls. The sound grew louder as she moved toward a corner of the barn, where a stack of hay bales formed a makeshift shelter. Clara crouched down and gently shifted the top bale aside, her breath caught in her throat. Nestled among the hay was a tiny puppy, trembling and injured. Its fur was a patchwork of golden and white, matted with dirt, and its left paw bore a small but bloody wound. Wide brown eyes stared up at Clara, filled with fear and pain. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered, reaching out cautiously. The puppy flinched but didn't try to escape, too weak to put up a fight. Clara scooped it up carefully, cradling the fragile creature against her chest. "How did you end up here?" Bluebell, who had followed Clara inside, stepped closer and lowered her head to sniff the puppy. Her warm breath ruffled its fur, and the puppy let out a soft whimper. To Clara's amazement, Bluebell nickered softly, as if offering reassurance. "You found this little guy, didn't you?" Clara said, glancing at the mare. "You wouldn't let me in because you were protecting him." Bluebell gave a low snort, her dark eyes unwavering. Clara couldn't help but smile despite the situation. "You're something else, Bluebell, a real guardian." Carrying the puppy carefully, Clara headed toward the farmhouse. Bluebell followed, her hoofbeats steady and protective. Inside, Clara set the puppy on a soft towel and began cleaning its wound with warm water and antiseptic. The puppy whined softly but didn't resist, its small body trembling from exhaustion and fear. Clara's father, Henry, entered the kitchen, his weathered face creasing with concern when he saw the scene. "What's this?" he asked, crouching beside Clara to get a closer look. "Bluebell found him in the barn," Clara explained. "He's hurt, but I think he'll be okay if we take care of him." Henry studied the puppy for a moment before nodding. "Looks like he's been through a lot. Good thing you've got Bluebell keeping an eye out." Clara smiled. "She wouldn't let me near the barn until I checked." Once the wound was cleaned and bandaged, Clara prepared a small dish of water and some softened bread, which the puppy devoured eagerly. "You're a fighter, huh?" she said softly. "I think I'll call you Scout." Scout's tail wagged weakly at the sound of his name, and Clara felt a pang of affection for the tiny survivor. As the day wore on, she fashioned a cozy bed for Scout in the corner of the kitchen. But Bluebell had other ideas. The mare stood outside the farmhouse, peering through the window as if waiting for Scout to return. Clara laughed softly. "Looks like someone's made a new friend." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Clara carried Scout back to the barn. She placed him on a soft pile of hay in Bluebell's stall, and to her surprise, the mare lowered herself beside the puppy, her large frame curling protectively around him. Scout nestled against her, his tiny body finally relaxing into sleep. Clara watched the scene with a mixture of awe and warmth. Bluebell, her gentle guardian, had taken on a new role, protector and caretaker for a vulnerable little soul. As she left the barn, Clara couldn't help but feel that this unexpected bond between Bluebell and Scout was only the beginning of a remarkable story. The following days at Willow Creek Ranch were nothing short of remarkable. Bluebell, the dapple gray mare, had fully embraced her role as Scout's protector, and the bond between them seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. Clara had never seen anything like it. Each morning, she'd find Bluebell standing over the puppy as if shielding him from the world. Scout, in turn, would greet her with a tiny, enthusiastic wag of his tail, his eyes brightening every time Bluebell nuzzled him. Scout's injuries began to heal quickly under Clara's care. The once timid puppy grew more energetic, hobbling around the barn on his bandaged paw and exploring the world around him with boundless curiosity. Bluebell seemed to act as both a watchful guardian and a gentle guide, nudging Scout away from trouble and staying close to his side. One morning, as Clara made her way to the barn with Scout's breakfast, she stopped in her tracks at the sight before her. Bluebell stood in the middle of the pasture, and Scout, his tiny frame dwarfed by her massive presence, was trotting alongside her. The mare moved slowly and carefully, her large hooves avoiding the puppy with practiced precision. She even seemed to lower her head periodically, as if checking on him. Clara couldn't help but smile. "You've got a shadow, Bluebell," she called out. The mare's ears flicked toward Clara, and Scout barked happily at the sound of her voice. As Clara approached with a bowl of softened food, Scout bounded toward her, his limp barely noticeable. She knelt down, letting the puppy devour his breakfast while Bluebell stood nearby, her gaze never leaving the two of them. Clara stroked the mare's neck. "You've got a good heart, girl. I don't know how Scout ended up here, but he couldn't have found a better protector." Clara's father, Henry, joined them in the pasture, leaning against the wooden fence. He chuckled softly as he watched the unlikely pair. "That horse acts like she's raising him. Never seen anything like it in my life." "Neither have I," Clara replied. "It's like she knows he needs her." Henry nodded, his expression thoughtful. Animals have a way of surprising us. They see things we can't. Over the next few weeks, Bluebell and Scout became inseparable. Wherever Bluebell went, Scout followed, his small paws struggling to keep up with her long strides. In turn, Bluebell adjusted her pace, moving slower to accommodate her tiny companion. Clara often found the two of them lying together in the barn. Bluebell's large body curled protectively around the puppy as he snoozed in the crook of her neck. As Scout grew stronger, he began to explore the ranch with more confidence. One sunny afternoon, Clara watched as the puppy darted around the pasture, his tail wagging furiously. Bluebell followed at a leisurely pace, her eyes soft and watchful. When Scout attempted to climb a small pile of hay bales only to tumble backward, Bluebell nickered softly and stepped closer, lowering her head to nudge him gently back onto his feet. Clara laughed. "You're a natural, Bluebell. Maybe we should hire you as a nanny." Despite her playful remark, Clara couldn't ignore the profound bond that had formed between the two animals. Bluebell, who had always been a steady and reliable companion, now seemed to radiate a quiet joy in her new role as Scout's guardian. And Scout, who had arrived at the ranch scared and injured, was blossoming into a spirited and fearless little pup. The ranch's other animals also seemed to take notice of the unlikely duo. The chickens clucked curiously whenever Scout wandered near the coop, and the barn cat, Whiskers, watched with bemused indifference from her perch on a hay bale. Even the sheep seemed to regard Scout with a wary acceptance, though they gave him a wide berth when he tried to chase their tails. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Clara sat outside the barn, watching Bluebell and Scout in the pasture. The mare stood under a large oak tree, her coat glowing in the soft light, while Scout bounded around her in playful circles. The sight filled Clara with a deep sense of peace. "You two are something special," she murmured. Her father joined her, carrying 2 mugs of steaming tea. He handed one to Clara and leaned against the fence beside her. "It's not every day you see a horse and a dog become family," he said, his tone warm with admiration. Clara nodded, her gaze never leaving the pair. It's like they were meant to find each other. Bluebell's been different since Scout showed up, happier somehow. "Animals have a way of healing each other," Henry said, "just like they heal us." Clara sipped her tea, her thoughts drifting. She couldn't shake the feeling that Scout's arrival had brought something magical to the ranch. It wasn't just the bond between him and Bluebell, it was the way their connection seemed to radiate outward, filling the entire ranch with a sense of warmth and unity. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Clara stood and stretched. "Time to get these two settled for the night," she said, setting her mug on the fence post. She walked into the pasture, her boots crunching softly against the grass. Bluebell nickered in greeting, and Scout barked excitedly, running to meet her. Clara knelt to scratch the puppy behind his ears, laughing as he licked her hand. "Come on, you two," she said, leading them back to the barn. Bluebell followed without hesitation, and Scout trotted alongside her, his tail wagging furiously. That night, as Clara closed the barn door and made her way back to the house, she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. Bluebell and Scout's bond was unlike anything she had ever seen, and she knew it was only the beginning of their extraordinary story. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between Bluebell and Scout grew stronger with each passing day. By now, Scout was a lively and healthy puppy, his injuries fully healed thanks to Clara's care and Bluebell's constant watchfulness. The once timid dog had become the heart of Willow Creek Ranch, bringing an infectious energy to everyone who crossed his path. Bluebell, too, had changed. The mare had always been calm and dependable, but since Scout's arrival, there was a noticeable spring in her step, a certain liveliness in her demeanor. The two were inseparable, a partnership that fascinated not only Clara and her father, but everyone in the small community who heard about them. One chilly autumn morning, Clara received a call from the town vet, Dr. Martin. He was organizing a fundraiser to support the local animal shelter and wanted to know if she and Bluebell would participate in a demonstration. "I hear Bluebell's quite the nurturing soul these days," Dr. Martin said with a chuckle. "I think folks would love to see her and Scout in action." Clara hesitated, glancing out the window where Bluebell and Scout were playing in the pasture. A demonstration? Like what? "Oh, nothing too fancy," Dr. Martin assured her. "Just bring them out, show off their bond, maybe talk about how they've inspired you. It could help raise awareness and funds for animals in need." Clara smiled. "We'd be happy to help." The day of the fundraiser arrived quickly. The town square buzzed with activity as families gathered to support the shelter. Booths lined the streets, selling baked goods, crafts, and pet supplies. A small stage had been set up in the center where local musicians performed and speakers shared stories about their animals. When it was Clara's turn, she led Bluebell onto the stage with Scout trotting happily alongside them. The crowd erupted into applause, and Clara's nerves melted away as she began to speak. "This is Bluebell, my mare, and Scout, a little puppy who found his way to our barn a few months ago," Clara said, her voice steady. "When Scout arrived, he was scared and injured, but Bluebell took him under her wing, or hoof, I should say, and became his protector." She shared the story of how she'd found Scout, how Bluebell had insisted on caring for him, and how their connection had transformed life on the ranch. "They taught me something important," Clara concluded, "that love and kindness transcend differences. If a horse and a dog can become family, imagine what we can achieve when we open our hearts to those in need." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause as Bluebell nickered softly and Scout barked, wagging his tail with excitement. After the event, Clara was approached by a young woman named Ellie, who had been listening intently from the front row. Ellie introduced herself as a trainer specializing in animal therapy and had been deeply moved by the bond between Bluebell and Scout. "Have you ever considered animal-assisted therapy?" Ellie asked. "I think Bluebell and Scout could be incredible therapy partners." Clara blinked in surprise. "I've never thought about it. What does that involve?" Ellie explained how therapy animals visited hospitals, schools, and nursing homes to provide comfort and companionship. Their presence had been shown to reduce stress, improve mood, and even aid in recovery. "Bluebell's calm nature and Scout's playful spirit make them a perfect team," Ellie said. "They could make a real difference in people's lives." Clara glanced at Bluebell and Scout, who were lying in the grass together, Scout curled up against Bluebell's side. The thought of sharing their unique bond with others filled her with excitement. Over the following weeks, Clara worked with Ellie to train Bluebell and Scout for their new roles as therapy animals. Bluebell took to the exercises effortlessly, her gentle demeanor making her a natural for the work. Scout, though brimming with energy, quickly learned the commands and routines, his enthusiasm bringing smiles to everyone involved. Their first visit was to a children's hospital in a nearby city. Clara led Bluebell into the garden area where the children were gathered, Scout trotting beside her with his tail wagging. The children's faces lit up as they saw the pair, their laughter and excitement filling the air. One little boy in a wheelchair reached out hesitantly toward Bluebell, his eyes wide with wonder. Bluebell stepped closer, lowering her head so the boy could stroke her soft muzzle. Scout, not wanting to be left out, gently placed his paws on the boy's lap, licking his hand and making him giggle. Clara's heart swelled with pride. Watching the joy that Bluebell and Scout brought to the children reaffirmed her decision to embrace this new path. As the months went on, Bluebell and Scout became fixtures in the community, visiting schools, senior centers, and hospitals. Their story inspired others to open their hearts and homes to animals in need, and the ranch became a hub for animal rescue and rehabilitation. Clara often reflected on how one fateful night had changed everything. Scout's arrival had not only brought new life to Bluebell, but had also given her a renewed sense of purpose. Together, the three of them had created something truly magical, a legacy of kindness, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between species. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the ranch in a warm golden glow, Clara sat in the pasture with Bluebell and Scout. The mare nibbled on the grass while Scout dozed at her feet, his tail twitching in his sleep. "You've changed everything," Clara whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "Both of you?" Bluebell nickered softly, and Scout stirred, wagging his tail as if he understood. In that moment, surrounded by the animals she loved, Clara knew that her life and the lives of countless others had been forever changed by the extraordinary bond between a horse and a puppy.